prepared. I want to speak to him in advance and tell him. Okay, here we go.
With the help of the Almighty, I pray to the Almighty to bestow upon me His truth, His wisdom, that I may be a worthy messenger of His in order to sanctify His name and to bring His message out, and so with the help of the Almighty bring peace to the world, Salom, of peace, which is one of the Almighty's attributes. And my greeter, Salam Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, peace and greetings. Thank you for coming, for giving of your precious time. Everybody is extremely busy, and to give of your time is we would say a mitzvah, is really a good deed, and we hope it's actually a crucial issue to understand this issue of the quagmire, this terrible Nakba, the suffering and the issue of Palestine and everything that is happening today in the Holy Land. It's really crucial to understand, and we hope that it will be a start from here to be able to continue a catalyst that we should be able to have a full peace. And one never knows from where God's, we would say Yeshua, God's relief comes from. And it could be one of us, and certainly every action that every human being takes is noted by the Almighty and is important. But sometimes there's certain issues that one can accomplish, and it could be from here that we can have, God will help be a true peace with God's name, inshallah, and the sanctification of God's name, and we hope so. Amen. It is very hard to speak on a subject that it is so involved, so complicated, so much pain, so much deep pain in people's hearts. It is hard for people to hear, to open their minds when it's such an emotional issue. Yet it is essential, just in such an instance, that one should try to put aside their beliefs from before, and to be open to hear, even though it may be uncomfortable, it may place them in an uncomfortable situation with their friends and so forth. But if you're looking for truth, we pray to God that we should not have our pre-assumptions, what we've thought before and what we've accepted. It should block from looking for the truth. So everybody should pray for that, and we should hope, and I hope that in this short period of time we should be able to at least open a window, shed a little light, that it should be the opportunity that people should be able to go from here further and study the subject in full, and have at least the directions from where to go to see what is the issue here. And therefore, I thank the university for allowing us to come speak, and especially the SJP, MSU, for giving us this opportunity to speak. And God bless, and I'm sure God will repay thousandfold. Abu Rashid for bringing me here and being my host here the whole time, bringing and taking and giving tirelessly at this time, and especially God bless all of you and your families. And with God's help, it'll be worth it, this effort. We have the issue, as you've heard at the introduction, that there were people here who were opposed to our speaking on this subject. It's maybe a frequent happening that people stand up and say, hey, you're calling somebody who's a self-hating Jew, who's anti-Semitic, who supports anti-Semitism. That's a common mantra, a common accusation against the ones who are anti-Zionist, against the religious Jews. They're called fanatical. They're dismissed because we're fanatical Jews, we're radical, and so forth. And really, the result is that we have to stand and be, or expected to be apologetic, and stand there and say, oh, no, you just don't understand, we really mean well, and we this and we that, and you know, you're the fine example of what Judaism is, but the reason I disagree with you is because I have some issue that I want to sort of compliment to your Judaism, and that is totally wrong. We are not here to apologize, we're not here to be on the defense. We're not here to attack people, but we're not here to be on the defense of what we are standing. We are here to demand that we be recognized as Judaism and the representation of Judaism, and anybody who speaks in our name, in the name of our religion, Judaism, and uses our symbols, the Star of David, and has taken a name Israel, that what they're doing is an illegitimate act, it has no basis in the Torah, and they have no right, it's simply hijacking our name and abusing our existence, our soul, and what Judaism is all about. And they have no right to do that. And we're here to, with God's help, to show you clearly that what Judaism is, and what this Judaism that's been presented to you, the narrative that's been presented to you, and what Judaism is a totally false narrative, a false representation of Judaism. There's pyramid schemes, you had Madoff, you had things like that go on for years, and you had some countries and states. You had the USSR that forbade religion, and it was recognized as a world government, as one of the distinguished countries of the world, of the superpowers, and you had South Africa, where they practiced apartheid, and it was recognized for many, many years, and they were given representation in the United Nations, and the people who opposed them, because it was blatantly racist, it oppressed the people, an entire people. These people who stood up and said this is wrong were called terrorists. Were they terrorists? Today, if you will take your children who are born in this generation and you say to them, Nelson Mandela is a terrorist, is the ones who stood up against apartheid, you think that there's a just position that they should have to sit in the back of the bus because their skin is black? Does this make sense to you? And does it make sense that these people who will show you, who are the distinguished leaders of a country, who are given the respect as national leaders, that they're the ones who forwarded this position, and the ones who held the leadership and had policemen to carry out these positions, that they could you understand that such a thing should exist? That the ones who told people that you have to sit in the back of the bus and you'll be arrested if you won't be, and so forth, that this could be a system of government, and I'm sure your children will say, this is crazy. I mean, you brought me up to that there's such a thing as justice, and that there's a godliness, that there's such a concept of God as compassionate and righteous, and just because God creates a person with a different color skin, how could that be such a thing? And yet, South Africa with apartheid existed for many years. And the only reason it really stopped, I don't think it was because of the politicians, but was the grassroots. It was people like you who stood up and just simply said, we're not going to be intimidated. And they did actions, they stood up, we're not condoning violence here, but we're talking, they stood up and they said, no, we're stubborn, we're not going to allow this, we're going to just stand there and we're going to be like that mosquito who buzzes around till you're going to finally pay attention to what we have to say. And eventually, with God's help, it was stopped. Eventually, that they forbade religion in the Soviet Union, where millions and millions of people were killed and disappeared because they practiced religion. That stopped. So, therefore, numbers doesn't mean anything. Numbers or recognition by world governments, or because they have the mic in their hands and they stand there and say, we are the official recognized representation, means nothing. And it could go on for years. And something like Madoff's scandal could go on for years and still make people penniless. And it could go on for years and they're recognized. And then one day it turns around and everybody said the king has some clothes. The king is naked. It can happen, and it will happen in our case. In our case, our identity of Judaism has been hijacked. The Star of David, our symbols, everything has been stolen from us. And that, with God's help, we will show you how and why. We have another thing. There is anti-Semitism, that there is shedding of Jewish blood beside the Palestinian blood. People say, hey, you're standing with the Palestinians, you're causing bloodshed, you're causing people to have courage to stand up and kill Jews. Now we say, how dare you? Jews have been living together with Muslims in Muslim lands. They were protected in Muslim lands for so many hundreds and hundreds of years when there were no human rights groups or nobody to object if they would have been murdered. And we were embraced when we had to run away during the Inquisition, during the Crusades and so forth. And now, what happened? What happened? Why all of a sudden, these same people who were extremely religious, and they had amongst them Jewish communities that flourished as distinctly different religion, practicing a distinctly different religion, Judaism, and yet they were not massacred. There may have been bumps in the road, but they weren't massacred. How come, till the time of Zionism, Jews had a home in all these lands? What changed? So you're saying that we, because we're standing up and opposing your misrepresentation of our religion, that we are causing bloodshed? You, since Zionism started, your hands are sullied with blood of the Palestinians and now my Jewish brethren, that Jews feel unsafe in France, that Netanyahu comes and stands in France and says everybody should leave France, the Jewish people, we made a Jewish home for you. And the Jews over there said, he's a persona non grata, we don't want him here, they sent him home. Why? Because Jews existed amongst Muslim people. What changed? It's only since Zionism, not since the religion of Islam, that coexisted with the people, the Jewish people. So it's not a religious conflict. What changed is the creation of something called Zionism. Zionism is an ideology, a material concept. It's not a spiritual, it's a material concept of nationalism. That is what came about a little over 100 years ago, and that is when this rift, this mistrust, this hate, animosity, and the unfortunate beginning of this endless river of bloodshed and suffering, the disrespect, and as I say, hate between Jews and Muslims, this is when it started. So recognize that if there's anybody who should be standing and apologizing and be humiliated and be trying to explain away why they're doing this, it should be Zionists. We're here to show what Judaism is and to point our fingers at what the problem is, to look, because if you want to remedy a sickness, you have to be able to recognize, to diagnose what the sickness is. If not, your hands, you have a share in the destruction of that person. If a person goes to a doctor and a tumor is growing and he refuses to recognize it, he gives him aspirin and medication just to cover the illness, then his hands are sullied in the blood of that person. And that is the case here with Zionism. It's growing, and people don't want to recognize that that is the root cause of this problem in Palestine, in the Holy Land. And that is the root cause of this hate and animosity and the rift that grows between Jewish people and Muslim people. What is the difference? What is this Judaism and what is Zionism that I'm talking about? Judaism, with the help of the Almighty, let me explain. Judaism is a religion. It means subservience to God. It's a covenant that Jewish people 3,000 years ago accepted on Mount Sinai. We believe God created the world, and everybody has to serve God. And if you serve God, and you don't serve idol worshiper, you keep the 7 commandments of Noah, you will inherit the world to come. That's the Jewish belief. But Jews went and they made a covenant with God to keep 613 commandments. Moses went on Mount Sinai and accepted this, the Torah from the Almighty. And that is what Judaism is. Accept, to be subservient to God, to follow His laws. And that's all what it is. It's nothing else. And the religion has not changed. We were given the Torah on Mount Sinai, and it is not allowed to be changed. Even one letter of the Torah is forbidden to be changed. As we have, every Jewish student will tell you that God said of King Solomon, even the one who's blessed with the greatest wisdom, as God blessed him, and yet if he would try to change one tip of a letter, it would not be accepted. And that is the way it is. We've been following our religion for 3,000 years, and anybody, no matter how great the rabbi or individual is, cannot change in any manner the Torah. And we follow to the letter of law. That's called Orthodox Jewry. Reform came around 200 years ago, and they wanted to reform the Judaism. In other words, they said, oh, it was written by Moses, therefore they don't have to keep the Ten Commandments. By us, they just simply, it's like Buddhist Judaism. It doesn't mean anything. It's ridiculous. It doesn't mean anything. It's reform. Exactly what the word is, reform. So it doesn't represent Judaism. Conservative came after reform. This is over 100 years ago or more, and they saw reform went over the deep end. They don't keep anything, and they decided to be a little more conservative. By us, that's nothing. The only way that you can practice Judaism if you don't stray one iota from the letter of the law. That is what Orthodox Jewry was, and is, and will be. And that is our covenant with God to follow. Zionism came around 150 years ago, and they decided that they weren't happy with the Reform movement, which most of them were children of the Reform movement, which Reform said that we're going to assimilate amongst the nations. People ridicule Jews, there's anti-Semitism, and we're going to assimilate and become like the other nations. They decided to change all the forms of the synagogues and to follow like Christianity. But they said, well, it's not working, this assimilation. We're still being attacked and made fun of, poked fun of when people go to drink and they drink one glass too many. Then people start talking, the tongues start moving freely, and they start accusing the Jews. There was a Dreyfus trial where a guy was accused of espionage, Captain Dreyfus, in France. So Theodor Herzl came along and his cohorts, and they said, well, this is not working. We have another plan. We're going to do something different. Instead of assimilating, like Reform Judaism wanted to do, we're going to create a whole different type of Ersatz Judaism. Nothing to do with a covenant with God, but a concept of nationalism. Just like Italians have Italy, we have the United States of America, Canadians have Canada, everybody's very proud of their country. We are going to create a Jewish homeland. So in other words, because they didn't find, it was empty, the Judaism was empty, but then they didn't find what to be proud of, what to give them substance in their religion. They were far removed from their religion. They were mostly non-practicing Jews. They even detested the practice of the religion. So what they were looking for is something different, something that we're proud of, a national home, an Olympic team, a strong army. They had another concept of what Judaism is. A transformation from spirituality, from a religion to base materialism, a nationalistic concept, to be a nation amongst other nations and be recognized and to be respected. And that is what they strive for. This, in and of itself, is blasphemy. This, in and of itself, is incongruous, and it really is like the diametric opposite. It's antithetical to what Judaism is. Judaism is subservience to God. Just as God is compassionate, you have to be compassionate. You have to keep the commandments, not to steal, not to kill, and follow all the laws. So Zionism, in and of itself, the essence of Zionism is really antithetical to Judaism. But there's more than that. Zionism, God with his greatness, with his almighty wisdom, foresaw that there'll be people